The text was never meant to be sent. It was supposed to stay in his drafts like everything else he was too scared to say aloud. But at 11:42 p.m., after another exhausting day of work, homework battles, and a lonely dinner in a quiet apartment, Daniel accidentally tapped send. And the message, half flirty, half tired honesty, shot across the hallway to the woman who hadn't smiled at him even once in the 6 months he'd lived there. If coldness were an art, you'd be the masterpiece next door, but I can't lie, somehow you still make my day. The second he realized what he had done, he froze. He didn't breathe. Because the woman he had texted, his neighbor Elena, was the kind of person who moved through the world like nothing could touch her. He expected anger, annoyance, maybe a complaint to the landlord. What he didn't expect was her reply. If you believe in kindness, hope, and the magic of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Tale before the story continues. For 6 long months, Daniel had watched Elena from a distance. Not in a creepy way, but in the way a lonely soul notices another lonely soul. She walked with perfect posture, spoke only when necessary, and kept her face guarded with a look that felt more like a shield than attitude. She wore plain clothes, carried her groceries alone, and locked her door quickly, as if afraid someone might step into her world. And Daniel, a single dad working double shifts at a warehouse, had convinced himself she simply didn't like people, especially people like him, the messy ones, the ones still patching their lives back together after heartbreak. He never planned to text her, but stress and exhaustion have a way of loosening mistakes. His son, Noah, had fallen asleep after crying about missing his mother again, something Daniel never knew how to soothe. The house was quiet, too quiet, and loneliness had crept into Daniel's fingers, making him type things he would never say out loud. When he saw the message sitting in the chat bubble under her name, he felt like the floor dropped from beneath him. Minutes passed, no reply. He told himself she was asleep or ignoring him or blocking him. He rehearsed apologies in his mind, but at 12:06 a.m. his phone buzzed. One line, ice cold. "Why would you say that?" Daniel's heart kicked painfully. He typed back, deleting 4 drafts before settling on the truth. "I'm sorry, long day, I shouldn't have said anything." She didn't reply again. And he spent the night staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had just ruined whatever small neighborly peace existed. But the next morning, something strange happened. When Daniel opened the door to take Noah to school, Elena was already in the hallway, not ignoring him, not pretending he didn't exist. Instead, she was standing still, clutching her phone, watching him with the kind of expression that didn't match the cold persona she lived behind. For the first time, her eyes weren't empty. They were confused and maybe afraid. And she spoke, quietly, almost like it hurt. "Why did you call me cold?" Daniel swallowed. Noah tugged at his sleeve, impatient, but Daniel could barely breathe. "I didn't mean cold as an insult," he finally said. "Just guarded, like someone who's been hurt before." Her lips trembled. She didn't deny it. She didn't correct him. She just whispered, "You shouldn't notice things about me." And she walked away. But that moment cracked something open, because that evening she knocked on his door. It was the softest knock he had ever heard. When he opened it, she held a container of food, awkwardly, as if she'd never offered anything to anyone before. "You mentioned a long day," she said, not meeting his eyes. "I made extra." Daniel didn't know whether to accept or refuse. Something told him that accepting meant stepping into a life she had carefully locked away. But Noah saw the food and grinned, dragging it inside without hesitation. And that was how Elena ended up sitting at his table, silent but present, watching a child eat spaghetti like it was the greatest thing on earth. Daniel wanted to ask her why she had come, why she looked nervous, why her hands kept shaking, but he didn't. He let silence do the work, and in that quiet, something unspoken formed between them. Over the next few days, everything shifted. She started saying hi. She started smiling, small, uncertain smiles, but real ones. She even helped Noah carry his school project across the hallway. But the real shock, the moment that nearly stopped Daniel's heart, came one rainy Tuesday evening. She showed up at his door again, soaked from the rain, holding her phone. "Your message," she said, voice trembling. "No one has said something kind to me in years, not without wanting something." Daniel stepped aside to let her in. She didn't move. Instead, she said, "You said I make your day." Why? He could have lied, could have made it casual, but he didn't. "Because you look like someone who's surviving," he said, "and I respect survivors." That was the moment she broke. Not in a dramatic way, just a single tear sliding down her cheek before she wiped it angrily. She told him she had left a toxic past, a partner who twisted kindness into control, a life where every smile came with a price. She learned to shut down, shut out, stay untouchable. Cold was safer, she whispered. Daniel didn't touch her, didn't push. He simply said, "You don't have to stay cold here." Something inside her thawed that night. Not instantly, not magically, but slowly, in small steps that came like sunlight after years of winter. She started checking on Noah, started sharing small pieces of her life, started trusting again. And Daniel, after 2 years of feeling like a failed father and broken man, started believing that he deserved connection too. Months later, on a warm evening that smelled like summer, she knocked on his door again. But this time she wasn't holding food or questions. She was holding courage. "About that message," she said, "you were wrong about something." Daniel raised an eyebrow. She took a breath. "You said I was a masterpiece of coldness, but I think maybe I was just waiting for the right warmth." And for the first time since he moved in, she gave him a full smile. Bright, vulnerable, beautiful. If this story touched your heart even a little, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Tale. Your support helps us create more powerful stories. Special request. Before the video ends, comment below, should Daniel ask Elena out on their first real date?